Hey, we're back. Short turnaround, short week for the Senseis. Bit like I guess college now, right? Some teams play on a Saturday and they got to turn around and play on a Friday night or Thursday night. But Senseis are, we were just with you all Tuesday night of this past week, and we're recording on Sunday this week. So short turnaround, Mark, but not short of a lot of topics to cover. So good to see you.
Good to see you, Andy. And you said it. I mean, this week there's just a lot of everything,
Yeah,
and a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of ugly, a lot of surprises,
yeah, that's
and
right.
just prototypical college football. So excited to talk through it with you.
Good deal. All right. Well, folks, we just finished up week 11. We're going to get into week 12 later on in the show, but we'll start off. And for those that are visually watching us, those that can that choose that medium, you can see we've got a bit of a memoriam, bit of tribute to Big Ben, Ben Herbstreit, Kirk's beloved golden retriever of 10 years. Unfortunately, lost his battle with cancer I think it was on Thursday, which was really just tragic in many ways. But the dog, for those that have paid attention to college football and college game day, know that a simple four-legged creature in the impact that he had on the game. So our hearts are out to Kirk and the entire Herb Street family, and quite frankly, probably the entire college football community. Big loss. So tough days, tough days.
Yeah, Andy. I mean, obviously, both of us are dog owners and dog lovers, and know the joy that the dog brings to ourselves, our family, and our loved ones around us. So, hearts out to Kirk, and may Ben rest in peace.
That's right. That's right. Well, going from the good of the animal, the good of the beast, we'll go right into the recap of week 11. And I'll kick us off here, Mark. Two for me. I mean, as always, for me, any week of college football is a good week. But two that I highlighted. Boy, both you and I lost this game, but good on Lane Kiffin. The running Rebs finally managed to get it done against on a big stage against a highly ranked team. I think that has been their consistent shortfall over the last many years. And Lane and the boys got it done against Georgia, and they were, just for a little context, Rebels were 23-45 against ranked teams heading into Saturday night's game, and they snapped an 11-game losing streak against a top 5 team. So a big win for the Rebs, and they absolutely dominated the first half of the ball game. Held Georgia to just 70 yards in the air, 0 yards of rushing, and 6 first downs. Ole Miss led at halftime 16-7. They ended up winning 28-10 overall. But big win for the running Rebs, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was I was impressed with how they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
How well they played. Georgia was what was disappointing to me, but like we talked about, whether it's the ACC, the Big 12, or the SEC, this thing is going to be bunched up at the end, and we'll see how this whole thing plays out.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and then my second one, I don't know if you caught this game yesterday, but during the highlights, Jacksonville State winning over Louisiana Tech, right? So Jacksonville State's down 37-31 with no time on the clock. Throw the 50-plus yard Hail Mary, and wide receiver snuck in behind the tangle of bodies in the end zone and snatched it out of air. And then just as quickly as there was the sigh and the exaltation of victory, wide right on the extra point, takes the air out of the stadium. They go into OT, but Jackson State held on to win in OT, and they remain undefeated in Conference USA at 5-0. So it was quite the exciting finish. It's good game.
I did have that, Andy. Jacksonville State over Louisiana Tech 44-37. The back and forth I was watching, I did catch the end of it, so I was able to see the real excitement. So these are fantastic finishes like we've been talking about
Yeah.
Memphis the last few weeks, and that conference in particular seems to have a lot of those.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of good on the week. I mean, first of all, BYU squeaking out a win
Wow.
over their conference rival. And me and you thought Utah was going to be left for dead, and they lost 22-21. Great game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess if you were going to have a game that had to live up to the billing of the Holy War,
That's right.
22-21 last second win on a field goal probably does it. But
Yeah.
yeah, what a win! What a win for the Cougs. Stay
So,
undefeated.
that's right. That's right. They stay
Yeah.
undefeated, man. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on when we talk about the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Syracuse losing, a barn burner to Boston
Good team.
College,
Yeah.
right? And we talked about the year Boston College has had, and what's his name? Bill Bryan.
Yeah. Bill
Bill
O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien's had a great year, and their offense looks great. They won 37-31. We both lost this game, and you touched a little bit upon it, when we were making the picks about the Ramblin' Wreck, but they pull out a big one over Miami, 28-23. And, Miami looked a little shaky last week, and they were able to hold on this
Yeah.
week. No,
No.
they lose. West Virginia against Cincinnati, another great game. West Virginia beats Cincinnati in Cincinnati, 31-24. Your team, the Hoosiers, they're for real, man. What a great feel-good win, beating Michigan. I think this is something like, Andy, it's like 80 years, some ridiculous, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the start. I think I think they were over the last 3 years something well below 500. Maybe it was the last two seasons, like 3-27. I guess that would be over 3 years. But yeah, they're 10-0 right now, so
Yeah.
pretty exciting for the Big Ten. It's good.
So it was a big bucket of good this week, Andy.
Yeah, good deal. Well, we'll go from good to bad, and you touched on the game, but Miami losing to Georgia Tech, man. We've talked about this for weeks now, and really since that Virginia Tech loss, or I should say Virginia Tech win. I think in most weeks when we've had Miami on the board, we've questioned the capability of their defense, and I think I've used the phrase a couple times that good old Reese Davis uses, but they managed to step on the rake this week, right? And a loss found them, right? It seemed that they had managed to escape losses. Off the top of my head, Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, and Duke, right? And I think there's one more in there, but boy, a team that's been ranked in the top 5 or the top 10 pretty much all year, having that many close games that they've eked out. Now, a lot of those have been high scoring games, but it wasn't as bad as the Canes lost to Georgia Tech last year. I don't know if you remember that game, but they were ahead down in Coral Gables in Hard Rock Stadium. Like less than a minute to go. All the Canes have to do is kneel down and run the clock out. They hand the ball off and fumble, and Georgia Tech picks it up, advances it, ends up winning the game in late fashion. And Chris, that was kind of the breaking point for Miami last season. But this year, I thought they would invoke revenge on the Ramblin' Wreck, but they did not. And their offense and their ability to convert late in the series was tough. Miami was 3 for 10 on third down conversions, while Georgia Tech was 9 of 14. So just couldn't hold off Georgia Tech and lost. It was 28-23, I believe. So that was a bad performance for the Canes, in my view, this past week.
It was, Andy, and you know what? The more I think about it, and the more the probability is that they're a target for a one and done in the playoffs. That's if they even make the playoff. Remember, they still got to go through Clemson and Pitt for the championship of the ACC. So let's see how this whole thing plays out. I don't know how many teams the championship, the playoffs will take from the ACC. I'm thinking at least 2, but we'll talk about that later. For me, there was a lot of bad, Andy. I mean, Texas State started the day off against University of Louisiana Monroe. Game was pouring. It was turnover after turnover. It was slow. And then just at the end, I mean, it was 38-17. It was fairly unwatchable. Which brings me to another unwatchable game, Army against North
Oh,
Texas.
yeah,
14-3. And Bryson was back.
he was. Yeah, he
And,
was.
and North Texas has a great offense. Army didn't let them onto the field. Army's defense was awesome, but the game was just, it was unbearable, Andy. It
It
was
was a
unbearable.
classic Service Academy game, although there was only one academy playing.
Yeah, yeah.
How about
So
that drive? Did you check that stat that I sent you this morning? Did you see that image of Army's drive?
oh, I didn't. I missed that.
Yeah.
I was looking at the other graphics that you sent.
Yeah, so
What
they
was it?
were well, where is this? I want to get it right here. They were so this was, I don't know at what point in the game it was. It must have been not their, I think is when they scored, it may have been their second touchdown. So the Army had, their drive was 21 plays for 94 yards, and they ate up 14 minutes of clock time, almost an entire quarter.
So the number of possessions
Yeah,
Army must have had, and even
North
North
Texas.
Texas must have been low. No,
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty
jeez.
pretty pedestrian game. But like you said, it was I was, and it was a game time decision for Daly to be back. So I thought for sure, and they weren't favored by much. I think it was only a 3 point spread perhaps, but yeah, I thought they would have won that game a bit more overall. I love all these advertisements that pop up. So total plays in the game.
Yeah,
So I think so. Last weekend, I think it was last week, or I think we were recapping that. I think it was a Tulsa UTSA game. I think is where the stats came from, but it was something like, I think Tulsa or somebody. I think it was one of them had 60 plays in the game. The other had 90. So in this game, total plays overall, the Black Knights had 68 and North Texas had 55. So uh, pretty pretty a bit
pretty
of
low.
a dull and slow pace grind for the Black Knights. So
Yeah, that's why I had him on the bad, and then the
yeah,
last one I had on the bad. Vandy was just disappointing. As much as I loved USC this year,
I
and
know.
South Carolina had some great games and wins, just for them to have one score and Carolina 28 just was not a game that I
Yeah,
was looking forward to watching it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just didn't really materialize.
Yeah, it was a bit of a dull game. Disappointing performance from the Commodores for sure. But
Yeah,
how about the ugly?
I don't know,
I'm
Andy. I
guessing.
had a few. What
I'm
did you think was ugly?
well. I just had one for ugly. You let them back on the docket, which I'm guessing the fugly we will both we will have the same opinion unless you've just gotten over that. But the ugly for me, Cyclones, man, dropping two in a row. Shotgun Steve, man, like what is going on with the program, my man? 7-1, taking on a 2-6 Jayhawk team. Granted, it was at Arrowhead, but still 2-6, man. Cyclones were down 31-7 at half. Strong offensive performance by both teams. Cyclones had 461 total yards of offense. Jayhawks 532. But Jayhawks ground game, they rushed for 237 yards, and the Cyclones could only muster 78. So yeah, I think that Kansas got too big a jump early, but it just looked like even just the game was ugly, and even the game and the environment. I saw some photos, and it was rainy, it was gray, just dismal. Just particularly if you were a Cyclones fan, to be sitting outside in the rain in Kansas City, couldn't have been a good time. But yeah, that was an ugly game for the Cyclones, and now puts them against the wall, man. It's they can't lose another game the rest of the season if they have any shot at all or any hope of potentially eking into the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Andy, I watch every game. You know that. I mean, I'm watching NEC game, Northeast Conference games. I'm watching the Wagner Seahawks. I'm watching Iona. I'm watching Hofstra. I love football. You know, I mean, that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I love it. And I was tuning into Marshall against Southern Miss,
Yeah.
and it was ugly. 37 for Marshall. Southern Miss could barely just muster a field goal. So obviously I'm flipping back and forth. And then I see your team, James Madison, who I told you from the beginning were pretenders. They had a pretty good day. They scored 38, but Georgia State could barely score, right? They had
Yeah.
7 points, and that was ugly. But the ugliest game of the week for me was watching Tulane score 52 points and Temple got 2 field goals, Andy.
Temple's terrible, man.
Yeah.
They're consistently in the top 25 worst teams in the country this year.
Yeah.
They had 56 yards in the air. The Owls did, and their top running back, he had 5 attempts for 80 yards and one TD. So pretty poor offensive showing from the Owls.
Yeah. So that was the ugly for me.
Okay. How about the fugly? Who's taking home the cake this week?
Andy, it was so bad. I can't decide. As me and you are texting, I was shut. I couldn't watch after Florida missed a 30-yard field goal, and they said Florida may be shut out for the first time since 1988. And Texas is going up and down the field at will.
Yeah.
I just couldn't watch it. And then you shoot me a text and say, Napier is safe.
Yeah. Yeah, they extended him. Or they communicated he was going to get a 4th year. At least that's what came across the wires this week leading up to that game. Now, after the performance on Saturday, maybe they'll change their mind. But yeah, 49-17, man, that's a drubbing.
Right. But the game itself was really fugly. And then, another disappointing team that we talked about all year, Purdue. Purdue takes a goose egg against Ohio State, 45-0. Again, Purdue has been horrendous this year.
They could be, I think, statistically, I've got to look at the organization that does it, but they put out the top 25 worst teams in the country, and Purdue has been in the top 5 most of the year. Kent State, the famous Kent State from Northern Ohio, is which, by the way, they've been the worst team in college football and FBS football leading up to this week, and appears they will hold that title as they went down to the Ohio Bobcats 41-0.
Wow.
Kent State now sits at 0-9. So I think Purdue and Kent State, they're all bottom dwellers there, and the Boilermakers that program has just been awful this year, really bad.
But if there's one team that's worse than Purdue, that's worse than everyone, that continues to show up on my fugly report, it's FSU.
That's mine.
2-3, Andy. I don't want to see this team on the show ever again.
Hey, they were only down 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, so they were in it. And then Katie barred the door. It was over, man. Yeah, that's who I had as the fugly too, man. I did my best to resist. I almost threw. Kent State certainly competed for that with their blowout loss to the Bobcats from Ohio, but Florida State, man. I mean, you really can't make it up. Like, you cannot make this season's story up. Like, if we go back to week 0. I mean, you and I both, along with all the experts, were just hyping Florida State. National
It was their
championship
revenge tour,
contenders.
right?
National championship contenders. They're
Yeah.
they're 1-9, man.
So do you believe it? They were 9-0, 10-0, 11-0 last year. They're going to finish 1-10, 1-11 this year. Talking about flip the script. This guy's got to be fired before the end of the year, Novo. Mike
I don't
Norvell?
know, man. I don't know. I don't think he does.
Wow.
As much, that's my prediction. My prediction is he's back, and this is like I don't know what all these health nuts do these I don't know what they call them, these these water flushes or these fastings, with all the fruits and the cayenne pepper and all that stuff. This seems to be flushing the system this year, so I'm not sure they got much more to flush out, to be honest with you. But it's already painful, if you know what I'm saying. But
here in New York, we call that the cleanse, baby.
That's right. That's right. I think he gets another year. I think they give him a pass this year, and if he's not and so this could be like one of the most interesting college football stories over a 3-year period. College football championship contenders in 2023 lose a star quarterback, a week before the final game of the season, get left out, a lot of ill will, a lot of bad feelings, lots of players sticking around. 2024, they go 1-11. Who knows what it'll end up being? 2-10. They come back in 2025. Could easily see them battling for a college football playoff spot. So I think he gets another year.
We shall see.
Yeah, but that was just an ugly game. I had, as usual, have had some stats on it. So let's see how bad their offense was. 200 yards of total offense, which is terrible. Is terrible in college. That's terrible in high school football. 89 in the air, 120 on the ground. Trivia time. Average yards per play passing for Florida State. What was it on Saturday?
5.6.
You're so generous, man. 1.1. Terrible. And 1.1 yards per pass play. And how about on the ground? How were they on the ground? Any better?
If passing was 1.1, I can't believe you're rushing the ball better than you're passing it, but I can't believe you're going to be less than 1 yard on the ground. I'm going to say 1.8.
Close. 2.8. Yeah. Just terrible, man. I mean, just awful. By contrast, Notre Dame had 252 in the air and 201 on the ground. So nearly had double the offense that Florida State had. So yeah, I don't think people in Seminole Land and down there in Tallahassee, the season can't end soon enough for this crew. So, but until such time, hey, you guys are doing it yourselves. Bring it 1 week, and the Sensei will we will offer you. We'll put you up in the good. We'll put you up in the top offensive performance. But this is a meritocracy we're running, so we dish it out equally. But all right, folks. Well, that's the good, bad, the ugly, and the fugly. I think we might have to have a trophy or a T-shirt made. We might have to send it down to Florida State, Mark. We might have to have the inaugural Saturday Sensei fugly championship ring, and we'll send that down to Norvell.
Absolutely, because it's FSU, it's North Carolina, it's Purdue, it's oh my God, we got a lot of contenders for the trophy. We will definitely give that one out.
We will. We'll do that. We'll put it on the agenda, folks. Tune into the once the regular season wraps. We will certainly look at the college football playoff, what it's going to be come December, but we will give out the Fugly of the Year award. And quite honestly, I cannot see anybody dethroning the Seminoles, but we'll see. So, all right, individual team performances, Mark. Offensive side of the ball, what you got?
I tell you, a couple of years ago, I was down in is it South Carolina? to Greenville, South Carolina. I saw East Carolina
The Pirates.
play Virginia Tech, and every time on that loudspeaker, the guy would say, "And it's another Pirates first down," and the whole crowd would go, "Arr!" By halftime, I had to leave the stadium. I couldn't take it anymore. It was ear piercing. It was so annoying.
Oh man, I love it.
But you know what? This guy, Caton Hauser, their quarterback, Andy,
Yep.
they played FAU last week. 17 of 22, 343 on 343 through the air, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think I think that was the performance of the week.
That's pretty good, man. That's a you can't. It's hard to top that. Hard to
But
top that.
I did have an honorable mention because that was in the air. But this quarterback on the ground, Andy,
Yeah.
was out of his mind. And this was your preseason Heisman
Yeah. How
Trophy
about
pick.
it? How about it, man? He single-handedly took him down Saturday night.
He was Superman, Andy. He
Yeah.
was 12 for 185 yards on the ground. You talk about a yards per carry of 15.4, 4 rushing touchdowns from your quarterback in Death Valley on a Saturday night. Roll Tide, baby, roll Tide.
Wow. Yeah, that was a performance. He single-handedly took down the Tigers, man. That was Heisman-esque.
Yeah.
So he certainly we talked about that game. We were picking him, and that was a knockout game. And the Tigers are officially out. Bama's still in, but yeah, that performance was pretty impressive. Well, I had 2 players, both of them on the ground, although I do have an honorable mention, a late addition to my list. We'll go back to that Jack State game, but Jacksonville State running back Trey Stewart, 34 attempts, 166 yards for 2 touchdowns and a big win, right? So that's a healthy day on the ground. And then, of course, my boy, who we've been hyping since week 1, Ashton Jeanty, 34 attempts, 209 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You know, just keeps his bid alive to take home the hardware in downtown NYC here in December. And the honorable mention, which now I think it's officially become a 2-horse race, but Travis Hunter, heck of a game on the offensive side of the ball. He had 16 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown against Texas Tech. So I still stick with Jeanty if he stays on pace to win the Heisman, but Hunter is certainly going to make a very strong case. And I think I don't know. We'll have to look historically, and we'll have to time up our show, and we'll have to make our picks. But we'll have to go back and do some research on the closest Heisman votes in recent history. But I think this one could be one of the closest in a very long time. So that's who I had on the offensive side of the ball, and then defensive side of the ball was one of the stats or one of the boards I sent to you. But just in terms of kind of the best defenses in the FBS, number 1 defensive team in the country in terms of points scored against, points per game allowed, Black Knights from Army, 11.3, man.
Yeah, they were my pick too, Andy.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been great this year. OSU, Ohio State has been great this year, and you know what? Penn State had a great game. I think they only let 7 points up, so it was a good performance by those 3 teams. But Army may win the defensive award, right? Our defensive award for the season. Army may come in there.
They may, yeah. But you got Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Tennessee rounding out the top 5. You got IU, Penn State up there, Oregon, barely making the top 10, I think here. So we'll see how the rest of the season fares. But some of those teams obviously haven't played the offenses that other teams have played. it was a drubbing against Georgia, but Texas, you still got to like them as a favorite, even though certainly in my bracket, I did not have them in the Final Four. I think after this week's loss from Georgia, that may change a bit. But, Texas on both sides of the ball, man, still appears to be, statistically at least, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country.
Tennessee is up there for both sides of the ball, Andy.
Yeah, that is true. Tennessee's also, from an offensive standpoint, probably in the top, I don't know, it looks like maybe the top 12 to 15. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the season shakes out. So, all right, folks, well, that's a recap on week 11. So we've run it down and run it back, as they say. We are now going to switch to give you guys a look at the, which you've probably already seen, those that pay attention, but we'll have a look at the CFP's initial playoff bracket, and we're going to do a little comparisons to what Mark and I shared the week prior, our week 10 show. If you haven't caught it yet, you got it backlog, you got it saved. Have a watch so you can see the brackets, or have a listen, but you'll see where we pick the teams, and we're going to stack ourselves up against the experts here in just a minute. So hang with us. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. There you have it, folks. We've got, for those watching, we've got the bracket from the CFP that was released on Super Tuesday, as Mark and I defined it as the first bracket. That's why it was Super Tuesday, despite another event going on last Tuesday evening. But so if you're watching us and if you're listening, you have to do your best to visualize. But for those watching, the big bracket boxes, so the large logos that you'll see, that represents what the CFP had put out on Tuesday. And the smaller logos, those are the corresponding teams for the corresponding rankings where Mark and I had them placed. So just as a refresher for folks who may not have caught it or seen it yet, first four in from the committee, Oregon at 1, Georgia at 2, Miami at 3, and BYU at 4. And then as we move from 5 down to 12, overall, they had Ohio State at 5, Texas at 6, Tennessee at 7, the Hoosiers at 8, Irish at 9, Penn State at 10, Bama at 11, and Boise State slide in there at number 12. So first reactions, Mark, what'd you think of the committee's first outlay of their brackets?
It's just so brand heavy, and what do I mean by that? The team that's having the best season out of everyone, Andy, and they give them an 8.
Yeah, they haven't played anybody though, right? So, until this weekend, right? They took on and took down the Wolverines. But prior to that, I understand they're undefeated, but it's hard to make a case against some of these other teams. I was listening to one of our peer shows, one of the most well-renowned, and they were on I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday show. They were talking about this, so they were reacting as well. But they were referencing a comment I think somebody maybe from the committee made, but just this whole aspect of one, strength of schedule, but quality losses. Right. And so if you look at some of the teams that have lost, and Penn State, really good example. So let's take Penn State's resume, right?
Yeah.
Big win on the road against USC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty decent win on the road against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right. And they had a very relatively close loss to Ohio State. They had one more pretty significant win in the season that they mentioned. But, they've had one close loss. Ohio State, same thing, right? Ohio State.
They lost to Oregon on the last play of the game.
Right, 1 point, right? So I think I understand. I agree with what you're saying in terms of big brand names, but I actually thought I thought it was relatively fair. The only team for me that raises questions is Tennessee. I don't know.
You didn't have them in your picks?
No, I didn't. That's what I'm saying. I just don't. I'm not sure that they're going to finish the season. Now, of course, we've seen some changes here this past week with some of the victories by Bama and Ole Miss this past weekend. But yeah, I'm just not sure. Seeing them at a 7, I'm not sure, man.
I think they're high at a 7, but I had them at 9. I still think the SEC gets 3 in,
Okay, do
and
you?
I think they have the right 3.
Yeah,
The question is, what is the order of those 3 based upon how they finish at the end? Like we were saying before the show was taping, there's just a backlog, and there's going to be a bunch in the ACC. There's going to be a bunch up in the SEC, like we talked about last week. And you know what? You might have a surprise in the Big 12. Obviously, Iowa State opening the door, and BYU, if they should falter, I think your boy Neon Dion is lurking.
yeah. Well, speaking of Tennessee and the SEC, so we've got now 3 1-loss teams in Tennessee, A&M, and Texas, right? And I had A&M in over Tennessee because I thought A&M was going to win on the road against South Carolina, so that was part of one of my big assumptions that got blown up a bit. Texas A&M's got to play Texas at the end of the year, but big matchup next weekend, my friend, for Tennessee, down in between the hedges, taking on the Bulldogs, right? So I think that's a do or die game for Georgia. Tennessee wins that, then I think they've got UTEP and Vandy left. I think they roll, and I could see them. They may make their way. Well, at that point, Georgia probably drops out of that 2 spot, and Tennessee finds its way into the Final Four potentially if Texas doesn't squeeze them out. But yeah, so just in terms of kind of how Mark and I fare for folks watching and looking, the big boxes, the larger logos represent the committee's picks, and the smaller logos represent where Mark and I had respective teams. So in the first 4 in, Mark and I had 3 of the 4 relative to the committee. Where we differed, the committee had the Canes at 3. I had Clemson prior to them losing last weekend to Louisville, but I had them winning the ACC and being at the 3 seed. That's why we've got the small tiger paw there. That was my pick. And then in the 4 seed, Mark had Ohio State sliding in there ahead of BYU. I think BYU still wins the Big 12, but so we were pretty close on the first 4 in. Still a lot to play out, and clearly after the loss to Ole Miss this weekend, Georgia probably not holding on to that 2 spot much longer.
No, they'll come down, and like you said, there's a big game this week. It's the T-shirt game of the week, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. I know. So, and then on the remaining 8, pretty much Mark and I had there were most of the teams. Iowa State, I had them in. Committee does not have them in, and after 2 losses here in a row, even after losing Texas Tech, I still would have kept them in. Would not have envisioned them losing to the Jayhawks, but they did. So they probably get knocked out. And then Texas A&M, I had them in at the 10 seed where the committee's got Penn State. I still think Texas A&M definitely has a shot to get in there. So, but by and large, Mark and I, we just had largely the same pieces on the board, just in different spots. Anything surprise you, Mark? You mentioned the Hoosiers at 8, but any of the other picks either in here and where they're slotted, or any team that was left out that you thought should be in here, barring the results from this recent weekend, because that wasn't factored into this?
I don't think anyone was really left out. You talked about Texas A&M, and that was someone right on the fringe. Again, I just thought that they were heavy on brand. I've never been a big Notre Dame fan. I had them at 12 They're in at 9. I had them at 11. Let's see. Are they playing Navy? Are they playing Army this week?
Yeah, they play. I don't know if it's. I think it's this coming
Yankee
weekend.
Stadium.
Is it at Yankee Stadium?
It is. My
I thought it was
boss.
I thought it was in South Bend.
No, my boss is making a road trip up to the Bronx, and he's a boy from the Midwest. I'm going to have to give him some advice as to how to survive up in the South Bronx.
Yeah, they take on actually this weekend. They're at home. Notre Dame is. They're at home against the Cavaliers, who just took down your boy Narduzzi and the Panthers for 2 losses this weekend. 2 weekends in a row that Pitt's lost. But Notre Dame's got Virginia, and then the weekend of the 23rd is at Yankee Stadium, 7:00 night game against the Black Knights.
7:00 a night game. Is it a Friday night or Saturday night?
23rd, yeah, November 23rd.
Saturday night in the Bronx. Woo! Good luck. I better tell my boss he needs to bring something with him, because that's one area you want to be walking around, having a couple of drinks from the Notre Dame group. He'll stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Well, the at least the game environment, at least and you saw this, witnessed it last year, but the Service Academy games are just different, right? Particularly when they're head to head, but even when one is playing another non-Service Academy, it's just a different environment. I find it much more respectful and a lot calmer, even regardless of the outcome. Typically, those Service Academy fans, very rarely, if ever, do they pull the antics you see from some of these other fan bases and stuff. So, but that game, that's going to be a real interesting game. That might have to be a T-shirt game consideration, Mark, for 2 weekends from now.
It might be. And what I said to him was, I might jump up on the 4 train and I might meet him at Stan's for a beer before he goes into the steel cage match.
Nice. That's good. That's good. Well, the one thing we touched on, earlier, and you alluded to it, and so just in terms of conferences, right? So I do think Ohio State, Big Ten, SEC probably have multiple teams, maybe up to 3. I think the ACC potentially 2, right? Interesting. We haven't talked about this. Who's leading the ACC right now, undefeated?
Who is the undefeated ACC team?
First year in the ACC.
SMU.
Yes.
I thought they were 7-1.
They're undefeated.
Oh, they're in
conference. In conference.
Right, that's what it is. So SMU has got to be, Andy, if they're 12, SMU's got to be 13 or 14 on this thing. They're right on the cusp.
Well, they are, I believe, coming into this weekend.
Yeah.
I think they were ranked 13th.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense. You talk about who's on the cusp, they got to be. And they have a very good team. We talked about it last week. They got deep pockets down there in Dallas.
Yep, they do. And they've got they don't not sure. I think they may have had a bye week this past week, but they were. I was checking that out earlier today. So be interesting to see who shakes out and playing in that ACC title game, because Pitt's now got 2 losses. You got Clemson with 1, you got Miami with 1, SMU undefeated. So you still have a bit of a dynamic there that has yet to play out. But I think if SMU, if they went out and they play in the ACC title game against Miami, perhaps, and Miami beats SMU, then I think there could be a case for 2 ACC teams to get in. I think the Big 12 is going to be limited to 1. I don't think they're going to get multiples in there, unless, again, I think you could see a case where Colorado wins out and they play BYU, and potentially Colorado beats BYU. Then maybe there's a push for 2 from the Big 12, but I think they're probably going to be limited to 1 overall. But that ACC, that's going to be a real interesting final 3 weeks of the season here to see how that finishes up. And And to Neon Dion's credit, boy, he's right in there for the battle in the Big 12. You know, particularly with the Cyclones going down, and he does have to take on the Jayhawks. I think he's got Utah left, so they got to run a bit of a gamut to find their way to that title game. But will be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Prime time, running the gauntlet.
Did you? They mentioned it. I think the Big 12 title game's down in Dallas. Can you imagine Neon Dion back in Dallas for the Colorado playing the Big 12 championship game?
It will
Hype
be a
City.
show, Andy.
Oh, big time! Yeah, it'll be big time. So, anyways, all right. Well, that's how we fared against the experts, everybody, in the playoff. This obviously is week 1. This was issued this past week, and we saw a lot change in week 11. And more is guaranteed to change in week 12. So, this bracket will be interesting to see how our original brackets fare to the final 12-team playoff bracket. And we'll get to that in a few weeks when we're there. But so that's a wrap on what's hot this week, hot topics. And now we'll transition to our game board for week 12. So hang with us, and we will be right back. All right, we're back, folks. Week 12 picks. We'll have to. We got to put a complaint into management to the production staff. Production staff forgot to update the week's records. That's reflective of the prior week. This week was not a real good week for either you or I in terms of our historical standards. So. I finished at 9-8, and my friend in New York City finished at 8-9. So
Woo! I
batting
took
around.
a bath this week, Andy.
Yeah, no, it was tough. So I think overall, I've picked up 1 on you in terms of the overall season. So you still got a 2-game lead overall, but yeah, it was a bit of a regression to the mean in week 11 for both of us. So on to week 12, we've got some great games, pretty good lineup this week. For those, again, that keep track and get into the bowels of college football, last week's FCS game of the week was Lamar University at the University of Incarnate Word. You all listeners be happy to know that Mark and I nailed that. Incarnate Word dominated Lamar, and the Cardinal was victorious at home. So we continue to fare well with our out there picks, and we got another one for you this week. But we'll start it off week 12. We got the Bruins traveling up the coast there to Seattle, taking on the Huskies. UCLA's been hot, my friend. Big win over Iowa this past Friday night at the Rose Bowl. They've won, I think, three of their 3 last games, right? 3 in a row, and Deshaun Foster's got that team. Looks like they're starting to hit on a few more cylinders than they were early on. But what do you think here?
I lost that game, Andy, but UCLA looked good and they beat Iowa. I had Iowa last week, and Washington just looked horrible against Penn State. I'm going to go with the Bruins.
Taking Deshaun up in Seattle, huh?
I think maybe he's woken that the bear. They poked the bear, and he's awoken.
That's right. I'm going to go UCLA as well too. So. Clemson, a big matchup here, man. This is for, at least for Pitt, this is a knockout game. But Clemson traveling to Pittsburgh, big matchup. This had Pitt not lost to the Cavaliers this past weekend, this matchup would have been much more intriguing. But we are where we are. What do you think with Dabo taking on your boy Narduzzi?
Pitt's lost 2 in a row. They lost to Virginia Tech, and then they lost last week.
Yeah,
I think the air has come out of the balloon, Andy, and Clemson is still in this thing. And I think Dabo smells blood, and the man's a shark. I'm going with Dabo and your boys, the Tigers.
The Tigers. He's coming off the Panther wagon to join Dabo. Yeah, I'm with you. I like that assessment. I think. Odds are, again, statistically, you would think 2 in a row, losing their 3rd in a row at home for Pitt, and being completely out of the picture. is maybe more compelling than Clemson having to win to stay in the fight for the ACC title. But I'm with you. I'm going to go Clemson in this one. I think they remained a one-loss team, and they are fighting for a shot at the ACC title game. So next one, big matchup. And I'm hoping if schedule works out, hoping to be there to watch this one live and in person. But the Green Wave traveling to Annapolis take on Navy. This will be a knockout game for probably for one of the teams to make or not make the AAC conference title championship. Big game here, Mark.
Tulane's got some offense, Andy. The Green Wave rolls, but I just Navy's had such a good year. It would be a crying shame for them to lose this thing at home. I got to go with the midshipmen.
Yeah, he's going midshipman. Tulane's 8-2. They are currently they're 6-0 in the conference, so this is a huge game. So Tulane's coming in undefeated in the conference, so this would be a knockout game for Tulane and Navy. So Tulane wins, they go to 7-0. Navy drops to 5-2. Tough to get past that. You got Army at 7-0, so you're likely looking at an Army Tulane game. Boy, the head side and the Sensei professor side of me says take the Green Wave in this one, Mark. But it's hard for me to root against Navy, and I'm gonna keep the hopes alive for a double weekend showdown of Army Navy in December, and I'm gonna say the Mids get it done at home. Very, very tight game going down to the wire, but I think the midshipmen home field advantage, and everybody will understand the stakes of this game. And I think Navy rises to the occasion. Tulane struggles on the road. So.
Well, I'm hoping that you rally the troops in the stands, Andy, and you're able to have a deafening noise and the Green Wave crumble.
I hope so, my friend. All right, next one, SEC matchup. Texas traveling into Little Rock, take on the Razorbacks.
This is a no-brainer. Hook 'em horns, baby. Hook 'em horns.
Yeah, Texas continues to roll. Smells blood, like you said. Georgia's lost, so that top spot, first round bye is open for the SEC, and Texas is well positioned. Big matchup here in the Big 12. The Utes traveling to Boulder to battle Neon Dion and crew. What do you think here?
I got 2 words for you, Andy. Prime time. And like you said, this is his show. He's got to run the table. He's got to get through that gauntlet and show up in Dallas at the end of the year as a conquering hero.
Yeah, I've got the Buffs at home. I think Utah left it out there on the field against BYU, and I think they're going to be a bit flat traveling to Colorado. And like you said, the prize is in sight for the Buffs. Next game up, Cincinnati traveling to Ames. Bearcats taking on the Cyclones.
Cincinnati looked horrible last week. I thought they beat West Virginia. They just couldn't get it going, and then when they did, it was just too late. I cannot believe Iowa State's going to lose again, especially at home. I'm going with the Cyclones.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Iowa State. I'm going to take the odds in this one. I don't think Cincinnati's they're not nearly as good of a team. And at home, Iowa State still potentially in it mathematically for the Big 12 because there's a lot to play out. So they have to win, and they got to win out. But, yeah, I don't think they lose at home to Cincinnati. Next game, Arizona State taking on Kansas State.
So Arizona State looked good on, what was it, Thursday night?
Yeah.
They scored a lot of points, and it was
a good game. It was 35-31. They ended up winning.
Yeah. So I am thinking that they're just not going to beat my team because my team has been so good all year, and I love Kansas State, and I love Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
So I'm going Kansas State, man.
Going Wildcats. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go Kansas State. I think I think they get it done. Dillingham has done a great job with Arizona State, but I think again Kansas State is they're still in the hunt for that Big 12 title game. I don't think they're going to lose at home, so I'm going Wildcats as well. Next up, Big Ten matchup: Michigan State, Illinois.
I got to go with Illinois, man.
Going Illinois in this one, eh?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, despite the fact that I am wearing a state jersey, thanks in large part to my sister's gifting to the boys, and one of my two boys didn't take it with him to school. Can't wear other schools' stuff, so I gladly sported. It's a comfortable tee, but I'm gonna go Illini in this one. I think Illinois gets this game, wins this game, and continues on with the season. Although perhaps a little disappointing in how it started. It looked pretty competitive, but yeah, I'm gonna go Illini in this one.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we've got Sam Houston against Kennesaw State. A bit of a random pick from our board master. What do you think here, Mark?
Kennesaw State, Andy, the Owls. I mean, the Owls are so bad this year, and Sam Houston State is up and down. But I can't believe that Sam Houston State's going to lose to a team that's 1-8 and that can barely get the ball in the air. I got Sam Houston State.
Yep, I'm going to go. Although Kennesaw State had the a bit like Vandy's victory at home over Bama. Kennesaw State did upset Liberty, basically knocked Liberty out of any contention, and you don't hear them being talked about anymore in the CFP, and that was due to the Kennesaw State win. Tough to do that, although Sam Houston State is not quite Liberty, but I'm going to go with Sam Houston as well in this game. Next game, we got the Cuse traveling out west, taking on Cal.
It's going to be a great game, Andy. Syracuse is a good team, as you know. And You're the one that said that California was underrated all year. They've had some great games. Pitt barely beat them. They're at home. I think California beats them.
You're going to go Cal at home, huh?
Yeah.
I think this game will be interesting. Cal is favored in that game overall. Syracuse is 6-3. Cal's 5-4. They're 1-4 in the conference, though. So Cal has not fared too well in ACC play in their first season in. The Cuse is 3-3. I'm going to go Kyle McCord and the Orange to win on the road at Cal this one. Yeah. So next up, we've got coming off a huge win over Pitt in Virginia, traveling up to South Bend, as we mentioned earlier, taking on the Irish.
As much as I don't like Notre Dame, I think they're overrated. I think they win this game at home. Virginia is not a team that scares me. I'm shocked the Cavaliers beat Pitt last week. It was a shocker for me. I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame gets it done at home. Agree. Next up, again, what could have been a much more deterministic game is still going to be a classic SEC matchup, but LSU traveling to Gainesville to take on the Gators of Florida. Be interesting to see how LSU, both teams, bounce back this week after Florida was drubbed by Texas, and LSU lost a tough one there to Bama, although they also got handed to them. So be interesting to see which team bounces back the best here. What do you think, Mark?
It's got to be LSU, man. The Florida looked so bad last week. They have no quarterback. They have so many turnovers. LSU just got embarrassed at home by their rival. They're going to beat Florida to a pulp.
I think I'm going to go LSU, but I think this game is much closer than folks think. I think it's going to be a touchdown or less game. I do think LSU holds on, but I think the Gators at home are going to give them a run for their money. So I'm going to go Tigers, but I think it's going to be close. Next up, spoiler alert, potentially. Boston College traveling to Dallas, take on SMU, and the Stangs, who we talked about earlier, are leading the ACC in their inaugural season. What do you think happens here, Mark?
I think Boston College has had a great season. We talked about Bill O'Brien. We talked about how he's turned the culture around and he's got a pro-style offense. I was not a big fan of SMU in the beginning of the year, and I like Boston College to be a good team. But from what I've seen, SMU, they're no fluke, man.
Yeah.
I think they get it done next week, and they make a push to get into this big dance.
Yeah. I think SMU is going to win at home. Boston College is one of those teams that's been up and down, man. It's kind of like Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech's had some good wins, although Florida State is not worth what it was in week 0, but just kind of up and down. But not enough to get it done on the road against SMU. I'm going Stangs. Stangs at home. Next one up, Oregon traveling into Camp Randall. This could be an interesting game if Whiskey can bounce back from this past weekend and find they had about a 3-week streak there where they found their defense was dialed in. I thought they were potentially going to push over and beat Penn State in that game, knocking out Aller, but not so much as we saw this past weekend. But Ducks traveling to Camp Randall. Oregon, to me, gets it done. They continue to roll, but could be an interesting game.
It's just too much talent, too much depth, too much. Yeah. I mean, Wisconsin's not on the same level as this Oregon team, so I think the Ducks win handily.
Yeah. Okay. All right, folks. We've got our weekly interesting, intriguing matchup from the FCS. We've got St. Thomas out of Minnesota traveling to the hometown here, about a mile from where I'm sitting right now taping the show, taking on the Butler Bulldogs, my alma mater. And Dogs looked really good this year, sitting at 8-2, taking on St. Thomas. But I'm going to roll Dogs in this one all the way at home. Final home game of the season. 2 more games to go, this one and one after. And who knows, they can make a run at the FCS championship game. But Dogs rolling this one over St. Thomas, in my view.
Yeah, I think the Dogs get it done. They're having a great year, and I think they win it.
We got 2 for the Dogs. Next up, this one I think of upset specials. I think this could be the game here this week. Boise State traveling to take on San Jose State and the Spartans under old Kenny Natamalu from who led the Naval Academy program for 16 years before being let go 2 years ago, and he's got the boys playing relatively well at San Jose State. This could be an interesting game. Really, I think this could be one where Boise State they could get knocked out of the CFP contention in this one.
I know, but Andy, they've come too far. They've come too far, and their running game with your boy Jeanty. San Jose is a dangerous team. I agree with you, but I think Boise State runs the table and they crash the party, and they're going to be part of this big dance. So I'm going Boise.
Yeah, this is a Mountain West matchup, right? So Boise's leading the conference at 5-0. Surprisingly, Colorado State is in second at 4-0. San Jose State sitting at 3-2 in fourth place. This is gonna be a tight game. I'm gonna have to go with Boise State in this one, just because I'm with you. I just think, assuming all goes well, Jeanty's healthy, the offense is rolling. I think they're too much. This is another game where I do think it could be potentially very close, and San Jose State wins. I will not be surprised. I think this is an upset special potentially. Second to last game, Jayhawks looking to spoil another title run for a Big 12 team. They're traveling out to Provo to take on the Cougs, BYU. What do you think here, Mark?
I think if the Cougars were going to lose, it was going to be last week in the Holy War. Yeah. And I think that they've gotten over the hump. They're at home. They can see the end in sight, and BYU gets it done, and they beat the Hawks. So I like BYU.
Yeah, I'm going BYU too. I think they're going to get it done at home. Jayhawks tough to win two big games like that, despite the fact it was a home game. But I think they're going to struggle to win on the road against BYU. So anyhow, so that brings us to the last game of the week, our T-shirt pick of the week. Big SEC matchup, lots at stake here. Knockout game for the Bulldogs. They lose and they're pretty much out of the picture. They'll have 3 losses. Tennessee wins. They're setting themselves up for probably a big showdown end of the year clash, most likely with Texas, unless Texas A&M happens to beat Texas in the final game of the year. Balls have been looking good on both sides of the ball. Young quarterback and Nico leading that crew. Georgia coming off a tough performance. Beck has not looked consistent week after week. He's turned the ball over somewhat regularly. This is going to be a tight one. But I'm going Georgia. I think Georgia's going to bounce back. I think they're going to make the story even more interesting in the SEC. They'll stay at 2 losses. They hand Tennessee their second loss and gum it up a bit more. But I find it hard to believe that Kirby and the boys lose 2 in a row and lose such an important game at home in between the hedges. So I look for a Georgia team that comes out and has a performance similar to that game they played against Texas. I think their defense is going to fly around the field. I think Beck will be afforded a mistake or two, but they'll still manage to find themselves victorious. So I'm rolling with the Dogs.
Andy, this is going to be a barn burner, Andy. And this is going to be, like you talked about, how they bunch it up at the top. And I can't see Kirby losing with 3 weeks to go in the season. So I got the Dogs, baby.
Dogs.
Get out the Dogs.
I thought for sure you'd be rolling with the Vols, my friend. But wow, so we're aligned on that one. Well, we'll see. I sure hope it's a competitive game. I hope it doesn't end up like some of the SEC games that we've hyped, or the networks and the experts have hyped. The Georgias, the Texases, the Bamas, the LSU. And the games end in a bit of a dud. I hope we see this one going down to the wire, and may the best team prove victorious. So there you have it, folks. There's the slate for the week. Another big slate, 18 games on the board. We're getting down to it. We're heading into week 12, and we only got 3 games left, Mark, in the regular season. Can't believe it.
Yeah, it's gone fast, Andy. It's gone fast. But
it's
going to be a fantastic finish.
That's right. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, you find Saturday Sensei on all your popular outlets for social media, for your podcast, wherever that may be. And, of course, you can watch us on YouTube if you want to see what we're talking about and check out the graphical expertise of our production staff, despite the fact we have a few misses here and there. But again, as always, we enjoy it. We love getting together. So we will come back to you a week from now. I think we'll be taping again, another a short week or a short turnaround for us. We'll be fresh off Saturday night games next week. But looking forward to, my friend. We're getting down to the wire, and time to make hay for those at the top. So we'll see what week 12 delivers. But I'm sure, as always, it'll deliver the goods. So thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Peace out.